Being a middle school principal is very akin to doing what I do now as a criminal defense lawyer. You know, it's dealing with issues and trying to put them in the best light that you can, and recognizing that sometimes people make mistakes in some situations, but overall, I think most people are good intended.
There are people watching this and they think they're too old to chase a new dream.
Oh, absolutely not. It's never, ever too late. Never, ever too late. Nothing worse than not trying.
George, welcome to the show. How are you doing today?
Great. How are you today?
Doing fine, doing fine. You've had one of the most unconventional journeys into law that I have seen. Most attorneys go from college to law school, and you did the exact opposite. You spent decades in education, led schools, managed a town, served in local government. Then in your 50s, you decided to become a lawyer. I want to know why. So take us back before law school. Who was George King before he ever stepped into a courtroom?
Well, like you said, I've done a lot of different things over my career. I've had the opportunity to receive some good education and have some good jobs, and I enjoyed it. But I like to explore new things and find new things. So, in 2017, I finished up being a principal of a middle school and an assistant superintendent of a school district, kind of a simultaneous job, and I decided to go to law school. I've always thought about it, never could quite find the time, but I decided I would go.
That's nice. So you just said you spent years in public education. You became a middle school principal and eventually became an assistant superintendent. So what did education teach you about people?
I think it taught me a lot. I don't know how to quantify it so much, but I think that in many ways, being a middle school principal is very akin to doing what I do now as a criminal
Mhm.
defense lawyer. It's dealing with people issues and trying to put them in the best light that you can, and recognizing that sometimes people make mistakes in some situations, but overall, I think most people are good intended.
Yeah, I understand. You have a lot of clients, people who, just had their first time with, encountering the law. So, how do you feel like, explaining something to them on a daily basis and it's repetitive?
I think that's a really good point, and I think it's something we as attorneys have to continue to remind ourselves all the time. A lot of the time that people are dealing with us, it's very routine for us going into a courtroom for a pretrial hearing or whatever, even a trial. But for those people, for many of them at least, it's the first time that they've ever experienced anything like that. It's a traumatic time in their life, and I think you're very correct. The patience and the explanation and the taking the time is so important, and that's another example, really, how it is very similar to how you have to deal with, especially kids during the educational process.
Mhm. And I see that your journey is really defined by a lot of people. Schools, then you entered public service, town clerk, town manager, city council. What drew you towards serving the community instead of going into private business?
I don't know. I've always felt that way. I think I felt that way from the time I was about, in my mid teenagers. I can remember there's a picture of me back in 1976, 1972. I was 12 years old and I was decked out in George McGovern for president signs. I really didn't have much idea of what was going on, but I certainly liked the idea. And I think that's my earliest memory of being involved in politics and government. And it just worked from there. When I was 18 years old, I got elected to a local town board as an 18-year-old, and it kind of just worked from
Well,
there. And
at
when I went
18
to
years
school,
old?
yeah, 18 years old. I was 1 month past my 18-year-old birthday. I was voting in my first municipal election. I walked into the voting booth and I saw a position was open on a board that governed the local cemetery. And I wrote my name in. And in those days, we had partisan elections. So became the Democratic nominee for that. I got elected. I beat the incumbent Republican and I won.
That's amazing. At 18 years old, you've accomplished so much. And right now, what do you think that during your early years, it was more about building laws for the people? Was there always a lawyer hiding somewhere inside you, or did that dream come later?
I think that's another good question. And I think the answer is yes, there always was somebody like that hiding inside me. Because what used to bother me when I was in municipal government, particularly, is I didn't like the way government treated people, especially people who weren't used to dealing with government, or people who had a specific problem, or they were, disadvantaged in some way. And I have lots of stories but it's, I just felt like we didn't make government accessible to people, and we almost felt like people needed to revere the government in a way that shouldn't happen. In other words, government should be usable. And a lot of those same feelings go over in the court. Some people probably deserve to be convicted, but a lot of people don't. And I just don't like the way that we go about things nowadays, in the way we enforce many of those laws.
Mhm.
Because those laws are unfair often to people because of the people's situation.
Uh,
One of the things, I do a lot of work in the district court, and a lot of the cases we come up with are related to drugs, or alcohol or something like that. And one thing, especially in Middlesex County, Massachusetts, where I do most of my work, the district attorney is quick to put on conditions for people's release. In other words, they get arrested, they go to court, they say, okay, you can leave, you don't have to go to jail, but you have to do these things, and you have to stay free, drug and alcohol free, and we're going to test you whenever we feel like it to make sure you stay drug and alcohol free while this case is going on. That sounds
mm.
great, but these people have a drug or alcohol problem. They just can't shut it off. And therefore, the government's saying you have to shut it off today. And they provide no support in doing that, zero support in doing that. They test them to make sure they've shut it off. It makes it a recipe for failure for these people. And I just feel really bad for them. And they're already in a bad spot, and the government, in my mind, sets them up to become in a worse spot, because if they are supposed to be drug and alcohol free, and then they go test with a problem, they may go to jail. I've seen it happen. I don't think we should be
Yeah,
putting
that's
people in jail for drug and alcohol problems.
Yeah, I totally understand your sentiments. And I also believe that at some point, drug and alcohol addiction is a mental health issue that should have been, um, you know, mitigated by the government itself. And what can you say to public officials, who are making laws, and drafting off these recreational activities for their releases for our audience? Is it unconstitutional for them to, just do some random drug testing and random drug alcohol testing?
I don't think it's unconstitutional, but I think it's probably not
Mm,
fair. And I think if they're
yeah.
going to make conditions on people, which I understand, if they're going to make people, abide by conditions, which may have some public safety aspects to it, they should give those people support. They shouldn't be looking to be punitive. They should be looking to help them recover.
So, for the public servants out there, what can you say about the current situation that Massachusetts is facing?
I know a lot of people. I know a lot of people watching me are probably saying, "Wow," and I'm not one of these people who doesn't see the reality of life. I just think that a lot of people who are pursued or get themselves involved with the justice system end up without a fair shake at it. In other words, they have all sorts of things put upon them, which I understand. People say, "Oh, they committed a crime," allegedly at least, but we don't support them. Like, I feel like we're trying to catch them. We need more programs for recovery to get people back where they want to be. It's better for the society. It's better for the people. Sending somebody to jail for 90 or 120 days is a life-changing experience that people will never, ever be able to get totally past. And I'm not sure it gets us to where we want to get with people.
Yeah, that's true. One of the most fascinating parts of your story is that you chose law school in your 50s. Most people at that stage, are thinking about retirement, but you were thinking about exams. So what happened? What made you switch?
Um, as I say, I always wanted to do it. I had the time to do it, and I'll be honest with you, it was a blast. I loved going to law school. I mean, maybe even better than practicing law. I like practicing law, but I loved going to law school, and it ended up being so much different than I anticipated. I mean, I did fine with the academics of it, and I went to school a lot during my life because just changing my careers a little bit, and I like education, so I was kind of somewhat used to the classroom. I got my second master's degree just about 6 or 7 years before. So it wasn't like I'd been out of the classroom forever. Um, so I had been in the classroom, but in the school I went to was a little unique, the Massachusetts School of Law. And for me, it did what it needed to do. And there was quite an eclectic group of people. There were actually people in my class older than me by a decent amount, actually. There are kids, my kids' age, just getting out of college and looking to go to law school. And I wasn't sure how it would all fit together, but it fit together really well. I ended up, I've been to a couple of weddings of kids I went to law school with that, became friends with, and it's been great. It was really, really a great experience.
Mhm. And you describe being a lawyer as a lifelong interest. Uh, at what age did you want to become a lawyer?
I think I thought about it when I was in college. I just couldn't quite work it out at the time. It was never
Uh, what finally pushed you to stop saying maybe someday and actually enroll?
the opportunity, really, because my career worked out and stuff like that. I had the opportunity. It was either look for another job in the public sector, or which I was tired of, and or find something new. And I was in a position where I could take the couple of years and do it. And I knew someone else who worked for me at the school district who was doing it on a part-time basis. I considered doing it that way, and ultimately I decided to do it on a full-time basis. It took me about 2.5 years, but I had the opportunity
What,
and I
what
wanted to do it.
so what were your family and friends' reaction? Did people think you were crazy for enrolling out in law school at 50?
That's a funny question. Yes and no. I think people knew who I was, so therefore I don't think they were all that surprised. People knew I treated jobs and careers a little unconventionally. In other words, I like to always try something new. I always say I'm good for I can't hold a job. I'm good for 6 or 7 years in the job. Then I want to find something else to do, because we only have one life, and I want to experience broad aspects of it. But it's all related too. So yeah, some people thought, wow. A lot of people say to me, I could never do that. I don't know how you do that in your 50s or whatever. And now that I'm in my 60s, I'll be honest with you, and I think it's an advantage of being in your 50s. To me, law school was not hard. People think law school is hard. I learned a lot. There's a lot of information, but it wasn't hard. And some people say, I can't believe you could do all that reading, all that studying. Yeah, like anybody else, it's a little tedious at times, but it wasn't hard. And I think one of the reasons it wasn't hard is you had the advantage of life experience. When a 1L class contracts, right? You kind of know what contracts are because you've dealt with them over the years and stuff like that, and business entities and all those things. Real life experience really helps you in those areas. So I think it's actually, in some regards, a little bit easier for people in their 50s.
Mhm. But um, for all the people, making a major life decision, was there ever a moment in law school where you questioned your decision about enrolling in your 50s, maybe during finals or being surrounded by classmates half your age?
Never. No,
Never.
I can never. I mean, I can remember after our finals in the first year, there's a bunch of kids were having a party at some hotel. It's like being like a young student again. And it was fun. Never. I had lots of different experiences, and I was welcome too. I mean, I was welcomed by young people in the law school as well as older people, and that was interesting. I always figured somebody was saying, the younger kids would think, what about that old guy? Why is that old guy here? And I remember back in my first year at Boston College as a freshman, I was 18 years old. We had a guy in our history class that, you know, appeared ancient to us. He was probably 35 years old, but he was older than the rest of us by a decent amount. I remember thinking, what's this guy doing here with us? And I don't think we were very friendly to that guy, or certainly didn't interact with him. Maybe he didn't want to interact with us. I don't know. But I kind of wondered and figured that maybe I'd be the old guy, kind of a lonely path of the law school, but it was actually just the opposite. It really was. It was amazing, actually.
Did you make any new friends in law school, like, students half your age? Are you still in contact with them even until now?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I have several good friends I made in law school. A couple of people who are about my age, and other people who are my kids' age or younger. And I think I mentioned before, two of the younger people I've become pretty good friends with. I went to their weddings since law school and stuff like that. It's so yeah, I'm very good friends with several people younger than my own kids, and a couple of people around my age from law school still to this day. Causes that level of companionship.
Yeah. So, another question I have is, uh, right now you became a lawyer, and they probably were your batch mates. Are they practicing lawyers now too?
Yep. 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 All the people I'm relatively friendly with, I'd say 4 or 5 people, they're all practicing lawyers. Yeah. One works for
Hmm.
the state in a, in a regulatory, so to speak, agency, and the other people have their own firms or work for a firm.
That's amazing. And you could have enjoyed retirement after everything you'd already accomplished, George. Why choose one of the most demanding professions instead?
I don't find it demanding. I guess that's the thing. I mean, yeah, it's busy and yeah,
Mhm.
there's pressure at times and there are times where it's really tough, but I have no interest in retiring. I'm 66 years old, which is hard for me to say and believe, but I have zero interest in retiring. I don't want people to say, he's going to kill himself with his job. That's not what it is. I enjoy what I do. I take time off too. I can, I run my own office. I take the work as it comes and I enjoy life. I do. I don't want to make it sound like I don't, but I have no interest in not working at all at this point in my life because I don't think that would be good for me, my mental health, with people around me if I just woke up in the morning with nothing to do. And I like to help people, and I have colleagues that are older than me who feel similarly, that don't want to retire.
So your life, right? Like from what you've told me, from 18 being, involved in governance, even up until now, it's all about helping people. Um, was there a specific moment that you've helped somebody with legal representation that stayed with you?
Yeah, there's been lots of moments. I tend to be a lawyer who is somewhat, people might say, aggressive or combative. I don't let things just settle most of the time. If we have a case, I'll try the case. I try probably a higher number of cases than most lawyers in the district court. And there's been several cases that, I feel like people were wrongly accused and we were able to prove them not guilty. And it's very satisfying. I had a case not too long ago. Um, I don't think they're bad people, and I don't think they are individually looking to be. But most of the individuals in those professions, I think, are good people trying to do the right things themselves. I had a case that recently where the person was a transgendered individual who was also a minority, and I just felt like, and they were being accused of operating under the influence of drugs and alcohol. Okay, and the alcohol charge didn't stick, but the prosecutor brought the drug charge right to trial, and there was essentially no evidence. There was no evidence, and of this person being under the influence of drugs, except the smell of marijuana. There was a cruiser video camera of the police officer behind the car. The car was going perfectly straight at a reasonable speed down a highway at 2 o'clock in the morning, And this person got pulled over and arrested. They felt like there was no way out. And it was very satisfying to win that case for them and show them that it can be a fair system.
Hmm. So when you finally became an attorney, what frustrated you most about the legal system?
Oh, that's really easy. When I first became an attorney, I started doing more family law than criminal law. And the lack of humanity, the time it takes on very specific personal issues, especially in the probate court, was so frustrating. I very rarely do any probate work anymore. I felt the court, through its systems, disrespected people, and it was a very frustrating experience. It took a lot of time. They'd have me and the people sitting around for hours. It was a horrible system.
For both a probate and a criminal defense, how much of how much of winning a case is legal knowledge and how much is understanding people?
That's a really good question, but you do have to have certain legal knowledge of procedures, evidence, what can get in, when you just have the client who's got the rest of the first time, they give you this long list of things they want to make sure come out in trial, and most of it's not admissible, okay, for various reasons. So you have to explain that to them. But you have to have the legal knowledge. But I think you also definitely have to understand people. You have to humanize the client to a jury. And that's harder to do in the probate court. That's another reason it's frustrating because you're mainly only going to a judge who sees a million cases a day. So it's really hard to get them to respect the humanity of an individual. But the jury system does work that way pretty well. You get to humanize the client. I think it's a 50-50 almost. I think both things are really important. I think a really good technical lawyer has trouble with a jury if they can't humanize their client. But I think but you can make the client as human as possible. If you don't know how to maneuver the system or, work the system and know the laws, you're going to have problems too, because there's a lot of technical things.
So you just told me that probate court, you're just standing in front of a judge. But for criminal defense, it could be in front of a judge or with a jury. Does your background in education help when you're standing before a judge or a jury?
Um, I think it helps in front of a jury. I'm not sure it helps in front of a judge. I think a judge sees enough people and enough different styles and stuff like that. But I think a jury, yeah, I think to some extent it helps because, it's presenting information to people and it's trying to make them understand the subject they probably hadn't previously really understood it in depth. And I think the more you do that, I think it can be advantageous for your client. So yeah, I think it helps.
So what's the biggest mistake people make after they're charged with a crime?
Talking to the police.
Why?
Because you can't take it back. Even if you're innocent, I don't ever recommend anyone talk to the police. Not at least until you have legal assistance. Even if you're the most innocent person in the world and been wrongly accused, don't talk to the police until you get legal assistance.
Mhm. And if someone is looking for a criminal defense attorney, what qualities should they be looking for beyond experience?
I think somebody that is willing to look at the whole case, really understand the case, give them an honest assessment of the case, and somebody who's willing to get back to them, doesn't put them off. Someone who's responsive and someone who's willing to fight for them as the circumstances dictate. A lot of people want to fight their cases, but I'm going to be honest with people. I mean, I love to fight cases. I love to find a good case to fight. But if I don't think the case is winnable or fightable or the risk is too high, I'll tell people that too. And it's ultimately their decision. I'm going to not bring people down the primrose path, so to speak, and make them think it's going to be all okay when it might not be. It's never, if you're in a position in court and you're going to trial, it's never 50-50. It's always more against you, okay? Because you wouldn't be there otherwise. But there are a lot of cases that are very triable, and there are other cases that are not. And the hardest cases are the ones that are in between.
So what do you do if the client still wants to fight the case, even if you've given the disclaimers?
Oh, you fight it as hard as you can.
So you've
And
spent your entire career serving the public one way or another. Teacher, principal, town manager, city council, attorney. Is there a common thread connecting all of these roles?
yeah, I mean, the involvement with government and process and things like that, I think to some extent. I'm presently on the city council in the city I live in, and I'm the chairman of the city council presently where I live. And it's fun because I, kind of run the meetings and use that process. I use the court process. It's just all related to public government. I haven't done other things. I haven't run private industry. But, so it's probably a lot of people don't understand there. I'd be a fish out of the water. The advantage I think I can say is I've had pretty good experience in all three branches of the government. I've worked in the judicial branch, I've worked in the legislative branch being a city council, and I've worked in the executive branch when I was a town manager and stuff like that. So,
And working with all of those branches in government, how has your understanding of justice changed over the years?
I don't know. I mean, I don't want to be too cynical. I really believe justice is something you have to pursue. I don't think it always comes to you, and that's kind of unfortunate. Sometimes it does. It might, but it would be lucky. Maybe just people get lucky. But I think overall, you have to pursue justice. You have to look for it. You have to value it, and you have to go for it.
Mhm. And do you think your years in government gave you a different perspective than most attorneys?
Um, I think so. I think so. I think that some of the things I've learned in government and how to present cases and present issues in government have helped me in court. I'm not very shy in court, and I'm willing to say what has to be said.
Mhm. All right. So, what has public service taught you about leadership?
Leadership, I think, it's defined differently by different people. I think people lead in different ways. I I guess it's one of those things that they say, you see it, you recognize it, but maybe you can't define it.
But what's your style?
I used to think I knew my style of leadership, but I'm not even sure I know my own style of leadership anymore. I think I try to inform people. I try to communicate. I don't say follow me blindly. I think I try to explain to people why I'm doing what I'm doing or why I think what I'm doing is the way I would like to go. But I also like to give people the opportunity to, kind of a diversified leadership point of view, I guess. I took a whole class for my master's degree in education and leadership types, and I'm still answering this question poorly. So I apologize for that. But I don't really know.
And there are people watching this right now, and they think they're too old to chase a new dream. What would you tell them?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, you can always chase it. I had a guy in law school with me who was in his 70s, and he became a lawyer. I'm 66 years old, so I assume most of my classmates from high school are in the same age range, which obviously they are. And I just saw a woman who I knew a little bit posted. She literally just this month graduated from nursing school. It's 65, 66 years old. It's never ever too late. Never ever too late. So I would definitely encourage anybody to do it. I think that you can do it. You'd be amazed what you can do. I wasn't sure when I started I would be able to do it, but like I said, it was great. It was a tremendous experience. You always want to have new experiences in life. You always should want to have new experiences in life. Don't have anybody tell you can't do it, and just go for it. Try to find whatever path you can to go do what you want to do. It'll be the only chance you have to do it. And there's one life, as I said, and just go for it. It's worth it and it's rewarding. And if you don't make it, it's okay too. Nothing worse than not trying.
And if you could go back and talk to your 25-year-old self, what advice would you give 25-year-old George?
Yeah. In a lot of ways, I'm very happy with the way my life worked out. So maybe I wouldn't change that much. I think and I think most people think I'm crazy saying this, but I think maybe make decisions and moves a little bit quicker, not wait as long as I did to do certain things. I would have liked the opportunity to have been a lawyer for many years, more than I will have that opportunity. And I look back at my life, and there were times that I probably could have done it. It would have been a little bit harder. I had younger kids, stuff like that. But I think that's the only thing. Just really assess what you can do, and don't be afraid to make moves and decisions.
Mm-hmm. And what legacy do you hope people remember George King for?
So that's interesting. I'm not a big legacy guy. I mean, I don't do it for my legacy. I do it for uh, my values and my enjoyment and my satisfaction. But I would certainly recognize that people, when you're in the public sector, people do make judgments about you. I would hope that people overall would see that I tried to do the right thing for the people. In operating in the different spheres, as I said, sometimes that's hard to be consistent. I don't think a lot of people who see me in the political role as a city council chairman or even my former role as a town manager probably don't know the me that's the lawyer sticking up for certain people and that type of thing. I don't spend a lot of time, frankly, publicizing it because I don't feel a need to. It's not really what drives me. But so I think people see different sides of me. Not probably as many people see the full view of me that maybe they should.
Yeah, I do think they should. I mean, your story is very inspiring. I still plan to finish, law school in my 30s, but given with what you said, I'm going to start as early as possible. Now, we're going to the rapid fire segment of our Answering Cases podcast. So, George, just answer all of these questions at the top of your head as fast as you can. Ready?
Yep.
All right. One word your clients would use to describe you:
Accessible.
coffee or tea,
Neither.
morning person or night owl,
Night owl, but trending backwards now.
favorite courtroom movie.
Um, I like Suits, the TV show.
All right. One book every lawyer should read.
I don't know one book, but I think a true crime book of some sort.
What's one lesson education taught you that law never could?
Um, people deserve a second chance.
Biggest misconception about criminal defense lawyers.
that they're doing something wrong by defending people who they know are guilty.
One habit that's made you successful.
Organization and persistence.
If you weren't practicing law today, what would you be doing?
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet, but I'm going to start thinking about it soon.
What's something people would be surprised to learn about George King?
I'm a shy person.
George, one thing that stood out to me throughout this conversation is that your story proves that there isn't one path to becoming an attorney. You built an entire career serving your community before ever stepping into law school. Instead of slowing down in your 50s, you chose to start something completely new. And I think that's a powerful reminder that purpose does not have an expiration date. And thank you for sharing your journey. And do you have any closing remarks for our audience?
No, I just like to thank you for the opportunity to talk about it. It's not something I have really regularly talked about in such a broad format. And, I hope it is an inspiration to people, that people can take inspiration from it. That's great, because I definitely would encourage people, whether they're in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or even 70s. If you want to do it, do it. There's no reason not to. And as I said, there was a guy in our class who was in his 70s.
All right. And if you've been inspired by George's story or need legal representation in Massachusetts, connect with George King and learn more about his practice. And if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs the reminder that it's never too late to pursue your calling. Until next time, this is Answering Cases. I'm Elijah Judson, and this is George King. Thanks for watching. Conversations Beyond the Courtroom.